All right, let's jump right in. We're going to connect a simple, dusty encounter on the African savanna all the way to the super high-tech world of modern medicine. It's the wild story of the porcupine and how its incredible defense mechanism ends up creating these huge ripples in places you would never, ever expect.
Okay, so first, let's really paint the picture here. On one side, you've got the African lion. We're talking around 400 pounds of pure, undisputed apex predator. And on the other side, the crested porcupine. Basically a large rodent that might hit 40 pounds on a good day. I mean, that's a 10-to-1 weight difference. It's a total David versus Goliath situation.
I mean, it seems like a total no-brainer, right? The king of the jungle against a rodent. But what if I told you the outcome is nowhere near that simple? In this particular face-off, the winner, well, it isn't always who you think it's going to be.
Okay, before we get any deeper, let's just get one thing straight. The biggest myth out there, we gotta bust it right now. Porcupines cannot shoot their quills. That's just something you see in cartoons. The real story, their actual defense, is so much more direct and, honestly, way more fascinating.
So if they're not launching them like little missiles, what's the big deal? What makes these quills so ridiculously effective? Well, that all comes down to their design. And believe me, this isn't just some simple spike. It is an absolute masterpiece of natural engineering.
You know, a quill is really just a specialized, stiff hair. It's made of keratin, the exact same stuff that's in your own fingernails. But the real secret, the game changer, is all at the very tip. If you were to look at it under a microscope, you'd see it's covered in these microscopic backward-facing barbs. And those tiny little barbs, they are the key to this whole story.
And here's where it gets really wild. These barbs do two things that sound completely opposite. The first thing is, they actually make it easier for the quill to go in. Think of it like a serrated knife blade. Those little teeth, the barbs, concentrate all the force, letting the quill just slice right through tissue with practically zero effort.
And this isn't just a guess. We can actually measure it. Scientists found that a barbed quill needs 50% less force to get into tissue compared to an identical quill without barbs. 50%. Just wrap your head around that for a second. The very thing you'd assume would make it harder to push in actually cuts the required effort in half. Talk about an incredible evolutionary trick.
So, this is the quill's brilliant, paradoxical design in a nutshell. It's a one-way street. On the way in, those little barbs just lie flat, making entries super smooth and easy. But the second you try to pull it out, whoa. They flare out and act like tiny anchors, digging themselves deep into muscle tissue. So, yeah, it goes in easy, but it is an absolute nightmare to get out.
Okay, so we've got this perfectly designed little weapon, but what happens when the king of the savannah decides to ignore all the warning signs and learns this lesson the hard, painful way?
Well, it turns out there's a pretty specific profile for the lions who make this mistake. Researchers have actually nicknamed it the young, foolish male syndrome. And it's exactly what it sounds like. It's usually the young, cocky male lions, often out hunting by themselves without the backup of their pride, who think, yeah, I could take on a porcupine. The results? They can be truly agonizing and sometimes even fatal.
And we know this isn't just a fluke. We can see it by basically doing forensic science on the past. Scientists are using modern CT scanners on lion skulls that have been sitting in museums for decades. It lets them play detective, uncovering this hidden long-term damage from quill encounters that happened ages ago.
Take a look at this really grim example. The Darajani man-eater, a lion from back in the 1960s. A CT scan of its skull found a massive 9-inch quill lodged way up inside its nasal cavity. And the consequence of that? Well, it would have totally wrecked its sense of smell and made it almost impossible to hunt its usual prey.
Okay, so a lion gets hurt. A really bad day for the lion, for sure. But why should we care? Well, this is where the story takes a turn and leads to the most alarming ripple effect of all, the unintended and very real consequence for humans.
So, first thing to get is that healthy, happy lions don't hunt porcupines for fun. It's not a choice. They're usually driven to this super risky, low-reward prey because they're desperate. It often happens when their go-to food, wildebeest, zebra, is hard to find, maybe because of a drought or something.
And this is how that tragic chain reaction unfolds. First, a desperate lion attacks a porcupine. Next, it gets these incredibly painful, debilitating quill injuries. Then, because of the pain, hunting its normal, fast prey becomes impossible. So what does it do? Starving and desperate, the lion starts looking for easier targets. And the easiest targets out there are often livestock and, tragically, sometimes people.
And look, this isn't just some wild theory. Listen to what Field Museum researcher Julian Kurbis-Peterhan says. Porcupine injuries are an anticipator of attacks on humans. What he means is, seeing a lion with quills isn't just sad for the lion, it's a massive red flag. It's a warning sign that this animal could become a direct threat to nearby human communities.
But the story doesn't just end in tragedy. And this is my favorite part. In one of the coolest twists in modern science, this ancient natural weapon is now sparking the future of medicine. Researchers literally looked at that easy-in, hard-out design and had a light bulb moment. They thought, what if we could copy that? This whole idea is called bioinspiration, learning from nature, and it's leading to a whole new class of medical tools that are designed to work just like a porcupine's quill.
So you might be asking, how is this really better than a regular needle? Well, this breaks it down perfectly. A standard medical needle, it takes more force to push in, and that causes more tissue damage. But a needle built like a quill, it needs way less force, which means less pain and damage, and it has this amazing ability to anchor itself right where it needs to be.
And this isn't just some sci-fi concept, it's leading to real-world stuff. We're talking about developing needles for shots that are way less painful, new kinds of medical adhesives, think staples or glues, that lock right into tissue for better healing, and even safer surgical tools that give doctors more precision and cause less damage.
And that brings us all the way back to the beginning. It's just incredible, right? From a lion's painful mistake on the savannah to a deadly problem for people, all the way to a life-saving innovation in our hospitals. It all started with a humble porcupine quill. Which just leaves you wondering, doesn't it? What other amazing secrets are hidden out there in the natural world, just waiting to help us solve our biggest challenges?